Alright, you guys. Alright, so the topic of this is pretty interesting. Let me just see if I can get the chat on here. Hold on. One sec. Let's see here. How do I do this? Let me just see if I can get the chat on the side here so I can see. Where is the chat? Usually there's an option here. Sorry, one sec, guys. I don't see it this time. What's going on? Just give me a sec to find it. Just not seeing it at all. Here it is. Okay, there we go. Alright, now I can at least see it on the side. Okay, and I'm also going to share the link to this. One sec. Just going to open up the stream and share the link in the Discord. Okay, share to Discord. Copy link. Put on Discord. Let's see. I guess we put it on media. Yeah, let's do this. Almost there. Almost there. All right, shared it. Okay, let's start. Let's get on this. So, I've heard a lot of people at the chess club. They complain that they have chess blindness. They keep dropping pieces. They keep blundering, and they don't know how to cure this. The thing is that with anything like this, you have to approach it deliberately and actually train that aspect of your game. So the easiest way, this will also make you a tactical whiz, is to every time you solve a puzzle, don't just rush in and start finding moves. Try to find the motifs that, try to find the tactical motifs in the position first. And this will teach your mind to recognize not just the tactic, but the preconditions for the tactics. Um, so if you guys don't know the tactical motifs, Chess Temple has a nice resource. So let me just copy this really quickly here. And if you go to, let's see, there's a place here where they give you the entire list of chess tactics here, right here, tactical motifs. And I would suggest just run through the list and know all of these. I mean, some of these even I don't know, like these esoteric techniques here, but I know most of them, right? All the important ones. Like go through the list, know these, and then even some positional motifs. I've never looked at the list, but I'm pretty sure they're probably pretty good. Yeah, like know these, right? Be able to kind of define them so that then when you analyze games or puzzles or whatever, you know what to look for. That's the first step. So I'm gonna give you guys some examples. So these are very easy puzzles because I just opened these up unrated here. So I'll guide you through how you might approach this, right? So what's going on here? We've got an unprotected queen. I don't know if I can highlight it. Yeah, I've got an unprotected queen here. So that's the first motif. So you see that when you're training this in puzzles, like looking for these motifs like a hanging piece, then when you play a game, you've already taught your mind to recognize this, right? Anything you want to do automatically, you have to train deliberately first. So here we're training ourselves to deliberately look for hanging pieces like this queen. Okay, what else is going on here? We've got a queen and bishop battery, eyeing the h7 pawn, and that h7 pawn is guarded by the knight and king. So 2-on-2, right? Anytime you have equal attackers and equal defenders, 2 pieces attacking, 2 pieces defending, we call it a power balance square. Power balance squares are hot zones for tactics. Tactics will almost always happen on these squares, that h7 square. So then already I'm looking for ways, hey, can I get rid of the knight, remove the defender of that pawn? Because then it would be 2 against 1. Or can I add a third attacker, right? So already I'm thinking like if this rook could take out the knight, then I'm hitting the h7 pawn. So that's a tactical motif in the air. But also as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking back to that queen and I'm thinking, okay, that queen was actually quite trapped. It's running short of squares. It cannot go there cannot go there because the bishop's controlling that square. Cannot. This line is very easily controlled by a rook coming to a1. So, and that my spidey sense is already tingling and telling me that that is probably the answer, something to do with trapping the queen. But you see that I'm not just rushing into looking for a tactic. I'm deliberately identifying the motifs in the position first. That actually lets you set up very advanced tactics, like beyond just 2, 3 movers. The reason being, I've realized there are kind of levels of tactics. The first one is kind of pattern recognition, like you just look at a position, you can spot the tactic. The second is combinations, where you have to calculate many branches. And then the third, I think what I found is like the highest level of tactics is kind of what you would see in like Mikhail Tal doing or Kasparov. It's like sacrificing kind of prospectively, like you don't see the outcome yet, but you're trusting your intuition about the potential of the pieces. So when you can identify a lot of motifs like this, like the power balance square there, you've got a hanging queen, you've got a trapped queen. Once you can recognize like 3 or 4 of these different motifs, then you can put together very complicated long sequences of moves uh, that just completely bamboozle your opponent because you've got a better understanding of the geometry of the position than your opponent does, right? So that you might make a threat here, but you're actually trying to set up a trapping the queen there kind of thing. Very complicated tactics are made possible once you understand all the motifs present in the position. Okay, so now let's start putting it all together. So now that I know the motifs, maybe I've missed one, who knows, but okay, can I just trap the queen immediately? Rook a1's not possible because queen can take it. Can I make that possible, I wonder? Um, so like one idea is already to play rook c3 and then rook a3 next move. I'm just trying to think, can black do anything to get out of this? Because, okay, so rook c3, I mean, rook c8 could potentially stop that because then the rook cannot travel to a3 because the rook would be pinning my rook to the queen. But I've got 2 attackers on this c8 square. So I'm really thinking rook c3 just seals the deal. What else could black try? Could try a4 or something. No, nothing works, right? So I'm just going to play it. And yeah, that is the answer. Now we just have to be a little bit careful. Like I can rush into rook a3 right now, or I can take the knight, and I don't know what the difference is. So let's just quickly examine this. If I take the knight, the problem is now when the rook goes to a3, the queen will be able to jump out to c4 because the bishop will not be controlling that square. So I'm thinking rook a3 first is the answer. Yes. Nice. So you see how we solved that tactic by identifying the motifs, and then you use a bit of calculation just to double check everything. All right, next one. All right, let's run through the motifs again here. Immediately, the move e5 jumps out at me, but let's not get carried away. Let's actually look for stuff. So there's a queen sitting vis-a-vis the king here in the same line, which means if we can open up the knight somehow, move the knight away or move our knight away, you're gonna have some tactics sitting duck right here, right? Which of course kind of dovetails with my idea of e5 earlier, which just intuitively made sense to me, jumped out at me. That's pattern recognition, right? But I can see how this kind of combines with the idea of opening up this line now. Now that I've seen this motif, because the knight will get out of the way, then we push the pawn again to e6, and then the knight will be able to jump out, and like just a mess for black. That's probably already the answer, but let's look at other motifs because we're training more than just tactics here. We're training how to not have chess blindness. So the black queen is hanging there. So see, we're training this deliberately to recognize hanging pieces. So the queen is hanging there, open line here. What else is going on? We've got an attack in the air. What else? Anything else going on here? Now there's also kind of a potential power balance square. Like this knight has two defenders, and potentially we have an attacker here. And after the move f5, we could actually open up the rook on that knight too. So that's another motif to kind of keep in mind. But you see how like a beginner might look at the move f5 and think, okay, look, hey, this looks cool, right? But because you've seen the motifs in the air, you're move f5 would have a much deeper idea that your opponent just might not even have a clue what you've entertained, that your real idea is to open up and attack on the knight. I'm not saying f5 is a good move here, or a dumb move to play, but you'll see gives you a deeper level of thinking. But okay, I'm going to look at the move e5 because it just seems very promising to me. He has to run with the knight somewhere. Then I'm going e6 next move. Then I've already set up a knight discovery. And I'm not even going to calculate this. I just know it's correct. Yep. Okay, let's get rid of that knight, chop it, keep going with our plan. There. And you see he has to get the king out of the way because if he had done anything to take that pawn, then the knight discovery would be too powerful. And you see how when you have a good understanding of motifs, you don't even need to calculate everything sometimes. Like you can play tactics kind of on intuition or prospectively because you understand the potential of the pieces. I don't need to check everything, although in a long game I might, right? But yeah. And now we just, I guess we just take the bishop. Yeah, okay. Let's keep going here. So what's going on here? The rook is under attack. The queen could take the knight, but the queen is guarding the knight. Okay, that's a very superficial analysis. I also bishop here jumps out at me because it separates the connection of the queen and knight. But you see, I'm kind of automatically jumping forward because I already see the motifs. But let's do it very deliberately. What is the motif here? You've got one attacker, one defender. So this is a power balance square. So we're looking. Oh no, I wasn't going to play queen takes g3. That was a mouse slip. Okay, so if you got a power balance square, we're trying to add an attacker or remove a defender. So if I can remove the queen, I pick up the knight. Or if I add an attacker to the knight, I win the piece. Bishop f4 is nice because it does both actually. It separates the connection of the queen to the knight, and it adds an attacker on the knight. So this is most likely the answer. But I just want to look at other motifs just so that we're training this muscle, right? Like e5 jumps out at me as another way of disrupting the connection. But of course, bishop takes pawn then, so it doesn't achieve that much. But let's look for any other motifs. Are there any? Not really, so I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, no, there's actually... This queen and rook are in the same line. So I'm not saying it comes out to anything here, but just... Let's say you were playing a game, you could set up a really devious, like, 10-move sequence that where the bishop comes around in here, comes here to the skewer, because you've noticed this motif in advance. So even though it's not part of the solution, just keep these motifs in mind, because they guide your thinking in the future. Uh, Anyways, I'm going to go with bishop f4. Yeah, it's the answer. Now, actually, I should be checking the response. I just saw bishop e5 as a defense, and I didn't look at that yet. Got lazy. But queen takes g3 makes sense, because now what it does is it takes the knight in a way where we let the rook defend the bishop as well. Yeah, solved. Okay, next. Alright, what's going on here? So I see that the rook came here, and it's already threatening this, because the bishop is a hanging piece, right? Remember, we're identifying motifs here. So that is a threat, and this actually comes with a back rank checkmate, because the pawn is guarding these squares, right? So the king is stuck on the back rank. So just very deliberately recognize all these motifs, take your time, so that then when you're playing a 1 minute game or whatever, it happens automatically because you've trained it very deliberately and slowly when you're doing these puzzles. Take your time with them. Okay, let's look at some of White's stuff. So we got two power balance squares here. Rook attacking the knight, knight defending the knight. So that's a power balance square. And this one, actually the rook, there are two rooks attacking the knight, only one guarding. So that's already a win of material if we can solve the back rank issue. Okay. Okay, so then we're thinking, okay, now that I've recognized these things and I can put it together, it's like, okay, I know I can win material here, but is there a way I can solve this back rank threat or dropping the bishop threat with tempo so that gives me time to win material? But also something else that's jumping out at me, it's that this white king is also not very safe. Like it's kind of short of squares. If I get a bishop check in here, who knows what could happen, right? What else is going on here? I also see that king e8 stops the back rank threat, rook d8, stops all of white's threats. And then white still has to contend with his knights. Like if he moves this knight, he drops that knight. If he moves this knight, he drops that knight. because the motif is there, right? The power balance squares. Although here there's rook d6, knight d6 check. So king e8 is probably not working. So now that I've recognized, and of course the rook is hanging there. Now that I've recognized the motifs, I can try to calculate a little bit more thoroughly and see what's going on. What I like about this move is that there's no rook d8 intermezzo because the rook would come down and intercept. So then I've gained material. So now I'm starting to look at that, even though it looks stupid, just because it allows me to play bishop here next. And you see how my motifs are coming together. Because I recognize the hanging rook on d1, I recognize the power balance square on e4, and I recognize that the king is not safe and the bishop check here could do something. And I should have also recognized that the bishop is hitting the king and the rook. It's a double attack. But you see how when you recognize all these motifs, you can put it all together in nice combinations. So take here, and I've also noticed that white's threats, so I can contend with them. So recognize all these motifs makes the solution very straightforward. Okay, no, but it's wrong. Let's see. Okay. Which way is the better way to do this? Okay, why is this wrong? Okay, hold on. So my idea was here, and then we go there, and here we are winning material. So where did I go wrong here? Hello. And this doesn't do anything because we have this. So this should be the answer. So what's going on here? Okay, so it's saying the answer. The real answer is I'm just gonna try this and see. Oh, it's not giving me the answer. What's going on here? Let's retry here. This is wrong? And it says this is wrong. No, it is right. It is right. I don't know why I was saying. Oh, because I must have mouse flipped earlier. This is the answer. Yeah. Okay. We'll do a few more just to really nail down like how to work this process. And remember, you can find the whole list of motifs here on the same site, Chess Tempo. Go to training, go to tactical motifs, find this page, and just click on them and make sure you know the main ones. Like the checkmates are not important. Like I don't even know these, although if you have time, why not learn them, right? But like little things like these, like clearance, these main tactical motifs, you should know what these are, so that you can be very deliberate about recognizing them when you do puzzles. Okay. Maybe I'll do some harder puzzles. I've got these set up here, but let's do a couple more of these easy ones. Here already this jumps out at me. Knight here forks the king and rook, so that's a motif to keep in mind. And this is also a power balance square because one attacker and one defender. So if we can move the queen away, I get that fork. Or if I can add another attacker, then I can get this, right? I also see this queen check in the air, which could lead to something, right? I see a hanging rook, unprotected rook there. I see an unprotected queen here, unprotected queen here. And already because I very deliberately and consciously recognize this hanging rook here, now this jumps out at me because there's actually a pin if this is hanging rook. So knight takes e5 also is a fork, and the pawn takes, the rook is hanging. What else is there? I see the pawn attacking the knight. I see the rook can come down here, and that would be quite dangerous in some lines. So now I'm already looking at knight e5, something concrete, now that I've recognized all the motifs here. Because if he takes, I take the rook, and then queen takes e4 at the end of it doesn't bother me so much. I can just move away. His king is also unsafe. Is there any kind of intermezzo he can throw at me? Not really. So I'm gonna just play it. Yeah, this is the answer. So you see how just going through the motifs makes solving puzzles very simple, because then solutions just jump out at you. Okay. What else is going on here? Actually, let's scrap this. Let's do a harder puzzle. Okay, so let's quit this. We've got a choice of Chess or chess.com. Chess puzzle. Okay, these are gonna be very hard, probably. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but we can try, I guess. At least I can draw some arrows on here. Okay, so it's white to play here. What's going on? Okay, so we've got a power balance square here. One attacker and one defender. So that's a halt zone for tactics. That means we're looking to either remove the rook, which is unlikely here, or we're trying to add another attacker on the rook with the tempo, probably. Which seems like it's probably going to be part of the answer to me, like moving the queen here by force or something. Or even, now that I'm seeing this fianchetto in conjunction with the back rank threats, I'm thinking of moves like queen a6 or queen a7 even, in some lines, because if we can take this, then the bishop would go back. Then this is a very common pattern to set up a checkmate. That's kind of a deep pattern recognition here, but I kind of think of it as a motif. Like there's probably a name for that kind of a checkmate. So I'm going to classify that as a motif. That if my rook ends up here with the bishop here, and the bishop is pinned, I can even have that queen sacked somewhere to achieve that, because then it's a forced checkmate probably. What else is going on here? I've got a queen under attack. I've got an unprotected queen here, unprotected queen there. Yeah, so now I can start looking for moves. So I really like the idea of getting this back there. So let's look at something like, I don't know. Oh, okay, also, when the queen ends up here, hitting the rook, it's going to create a power balance square on the d5 square. One attacker and one defender. So then a move like knight g5 or something, or knight d2, might separate the queen from the knight. But okay, I'm just going to start calculating a bit. Yeah, I'm seeing something like, let's say if I went here, and the rook ran away somewhere, then I have knight g5, and then let's say queen f5, because he has to keep guarding the knight. Then I go g4, and this time there's no queen e6 because the knight is guarding there. That's why I chose knight g5 rather than knight d2. Let's go back over that a little bit slower. Queen b7, setting up the threat of taking the rook. Now he can't take our rook because I would take here first and then take back the rook, right? So after this, he can't take the rook. He can't run with that rook or something. He has to move this rook somewhere. Now b7, sorry, b8 is a possibility actually. I didn't think of that. Okay, I know. So why don't I get rid of one of the rooks? Because the real idea is to play queen b7. That's the real threat. But I don't want to allow rook b8, chasing my queen out of there. So I go rook takes rook first, right? Um, and then rook takes rook, and then I go rook queen b7, setting up this power balance square here. And the rook is hanging. So let's say the rook runs somewhere. Let's say it runs, I don't know, f8 or something. And then this whole knight g5 idea works, separating the connection of the queen and knight. Then queen f5, g4, and he drops the knight. So let's try that out. Yeah, that's the answer. All right, so I mean, you see how this is like a over 3,000 rated, almost 3,100 rated tactic, and I solved it just by identifying all the motifs first. What was the and these motifs were not easy because some of these motifs popped up on the second move after queen b7, right? So that's the thing. Like right now, before on chess tempo we were practicing recognizing the motifs on the first move. But once you get good at this, you can start recognizing these motifs even partway through your calculation. So my original intention was something else with queen b7, right? It was to set up the back rank threat. But then I realized once the queen is sitting on b7, it's actually setting up a power balance square on d5, where I just need to separate the connection of the queen and knight. But then I also thought that after, okay, what if once I saw the rook b8 defense, then I thought, okay, why not make this even more powerful and make it so it's hitting a hanging rook? And then when you combine all these motifs together, you have a sequence that wins material, like on move 5 or something, right? So recognizing motifs lets you set up very sophisticated tactics. I'm gonna stop the video there. Hope you guys learned something. How to avoid chess blindness, how to achieve tactical mastery. Uh, I just think even something like chess blindness, you can train your way out of it if you're deliberate about it. You don't want to just like throw up your hands and complain about this. Like it can be trained very deliberately, and you can solve this issue for yourself, guys. Uh, yeah, thanks.